Good evening, and welcome to episode 72 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama. It's the Thursday edition of the Private Property Podcast, and I'm sure many of you, of course, heard the good news that the Reserve Bank has slashed the repo rate by 25 basis points, and that, of course, brings it to 3.5%. It's one of those very historic lows. I think I was seeing earlier that the last time it was at such a low was in July of 1966. That was even before I was probably an idea in my parents' mind. So I'm sure a lot of us who are certainly interested in property probably want to find different ways to take advantage of these lower interest rates. And we'll certainly be exploring what those different ways are, as we have when we've seen the interest rate go down through the different cycles in the past few weeks. I'm sure a lot of people who are certainly in debt. This is also, of course, welcome news, certainly for all of you, because this is also the time when, cutting down on your debt or paying down your debt as much as possible becomes, such an important thing. We're certainly going to be exploring the different ways you can take advantage of these lower interest rates and what they exactly mean. I mean, there's certainly been different, people who are saying don't go buying a property just because you're seeing historically lower interest rates, because you might get a false sense of affordability. So having a holistic view of how your finances essentially look like and understanding how to better take advantage of the low interest rates is so important. Certainly for those who already have properties in your portfolio, what you want to be doing is perhaps going back to your banks and renegotiating your interest. Perhaps you're now in a better financial position and you're thinking, look, these interest rates are fairly low. I've been doing fairly well. I've had this bond facility for X number of years, and I've always paid it very diligently. Perhaps you even pay extra every month. So this is that time where you should be proactive in having that conversation with the bank. We've certainly, given different tips around how you can best approach it, and that the worst you can get is a no from the bank. Certainly them saying that they're not in a position to renegotiate your interest rate or even to offer a lower one. Perhaps you might explore going to other banks. But of course, it is important to make sure that you do the right research, find out if that's going to necessarily be the right financial decision for you. And these are some of the issues that we always like covering right here on the Private Property Podcast. And if you've missed any episode in the past where we've covered some of these, then do go on, whether it's on our Facebook page to look at the past episodes, but certainly also on the Private Property YouTube channel, where we've got a special playlist for the daily podcast. You can go back to all the different episodes where we've spoken to various experts who've helped us better navigate and understand what it means to be investing in times of crisis. I think one of the episodes that actually stands out for me was the one where we had a full panel, various experts with different expertise and different backgrounds. I remember one was Uslindile Khumalo, who is the chairperson of Sakisizwe Property Stockfile. We also had Ntato. We also had it was, I think, Booth, who, also, of course, is into the property space. We've had him more than once right on the Private Property Podcast, and having a better understanding of what are some of the reasons people should or shouldn't be, investing in real estate during this time of crisis. You've certainly heard different people saying this is the right time to buy the property. Is it really? And if it is, how do you make sure that you make the right financial decisions? So this evening, we want to be looking at somebody who was able to take advantage of the various opportunities that property presented, itself. And that is Ukosi Maguluda, who is the property owner of Sisana Heights. Currently just having a few technical issues with her. And I'm sure that, the team will probably take a quick break and we'll see if we're able to bring her back. And I think her story is one that's actually so inspiring. A lot of us sometimes take a very short-term view to property, and I'm sure if you've certainly been following with the show, you get a sense that the different guests that we've had always give us a sense that you need to take a very long-term approach to property and find different ways of best navigating your property journey. And that is something that she certainly has been able to do. I know that a lot of you have heard me talk about TAF. We've even, interviewed somebody from TAF and some of the funding opportunities that they had. And, Kosi is a candidate who was actually able to take advantage of the funding opportunities from TAF, and navigating even that space is something that I'm sure is so foreign to so many of us. So from this conversation, we want to get the snapshot of how she went from being a travel agent to essentially owning her own multi-unit development, and really understanding the story behind the Sisana Heights. And if anything, this really will give us a better understanding of what it also takes to buy sometimes whether it's a piece of land or sometimes a property that still needs to be worked on, and then develop it to meet the goals that you have and even meet some of the financial, the money that you're able to get from various financiers, and understanding some of the challenges that perhaps will come about, because I'm sure many of us who are in this property thing have encountered various challenges, from perhaps signing an OTP that you didn't fully understand and grasp, or perhaps not ensuring that an inspection is done before you buy a property and only realizing after the fact that there might actually be something wrong with the property. And learning, of course, from some of these mistakes that we've made, and so many of us certainly have learned along the way. We're still having those financial difficulties in reaching course. In the meantime, I certainly want to be hearing from you if you're on your property journey. What have been some of the lessons that you have learned? And this could be from buying your first property, for example, as opposed to only buying a rental property. Perhaps you've gone beyond just buying your primary residence and you've also added different properties in your property portfolio. What have been some of the lessons that you've learned along the way that have helped you on your property journey, and that has also helped you grow your property journey? Because I think a lot of us who might be in the early stages are thinking, okay, wow, getting that first one is already such a big mission. I don't know what's going to take to get to the second one, and then you get the second one and the third one and the fourth one. Then you hit that glass ceiling, and you think, I don't know if it's actually possible for me to scale. So there certainly are various types of challenges that you encounter on your property journey. Sometimes it might be issues with your tenant, sometimes it might be issues with the agent that you're working with. And I think getting a better understanding of how to best navigate that is so important. So share with us down below. We certainly want to hear from you. We're going to be taking a quick commercial break to see if we're able to connect with our guest this evening, Okosi Makuluda, who I did say, is the person behind Sisana Hearts. We do hope that we'll be able to reach her on the line. So we're going to go for a quick break and we'll be back just after this.
Hi, I'm Clinton Banfield. Our family and I live in Cape Town on the Western Seaboard. To be able to wake up and take in the scenery every day is an absolute pleasure. We probably have the best views of Table Mountain. There's some really amazing suburbs in our neighborhood. There's Milnerton, which is a central hub close to the city. There's some beautiful homes situated along the canal, which give you a breathtaking view of Table Mountain. A little bit further along the canal, you'll find Milnerton Golf Club, which is a great place to unwind with your mates. Then we have Blouberg, which is world-renowned for its beaches, where you'll often see kite surfers taking full advantage of the wind. To top it off, there's a great variety of family restaurants in the area, like Blue Peter, where people love to meet. The Bayside Mall is a landmark in Tableview, giving you an all-round retail experience in a relaxed and convenient environment. As a family, we've chosen to live in Atlantic Beach Golf Estate in Melkbosstrand. Our suburb is so chilled, it really gives you this constant holiday feel. We've lived here for 2 years, and we've really enjoyed the laid-back lifestyle, and this is our neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Jared Siegel. I'm a local restaurateur and the owner of Jared's Espresso Bar and Eatery in Sea Point. I'm a Cape Town local, Camps Bay born and bred, and I've been living in Sydney, Australia for the last few years. Living abroad, I've always been drawn to the mother city, and I've recently decided to come back home. Taking lifestyle factors into consideration, Bantry Bay has been the perfect fit for me. Living on the Atlantic seaboard really resonates with what I'm all about. From the active lifestyle, the amazing food culture, its family-friendly environment, and amazing natural beauty, the quality of life we have on offer is really unique. The Atlantic seaboard has some of the most beautiful suburbs in the country. With areas like Camps Bay and its world-renowned beach culture and the recent refurbishment of Sea Point Promenade, it's no wonder our neighborhood has such a global appeal. After a long day of hard work, there's nothing better than taking a walk along Clifton Beach, sharing a moment and watching the sunset. Trying to offer something authentic to the community, I'm not about reinventing the wheel, just doing the classics really well. And this is my neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Nobuntu Webster. I'm an entrepreneur. I moved to Sandton to pursue a dream. I've based myself in Sandton because it's the gateway to Africa. The neighborhood of Sandton is alive. It's alive with possibility. It's got the most amazing vibe. If you need to get anything done, this is the place to get it done. One of the things I really love about Sandton is how it lights up at night. If those lights don't inspire you, nothing will. Sandton is the richest square mile in Africa. It has everything, from shopping in Sandton City to five-star hotels like a Michelangelo for my international guests. It works for me to be here. There are so many designer stores. There's an abundance of clothes and everything else to choose from. Being an entrepreneur, I travel a lot, so it's really convenient to be able to get onto the Gau train, and in 15 minutes, I'm at the airport. Business is important to me, but my family is everything, and that's why my family and I are looking to move into one of the suburbs in Sandton. Sandton has some of the most exclusive homes in the country, in places like Hyde Park and Sandown. A little bit less fast-paced is your suburbs like Bryanston and Rivonia. Bryanston was a natural choice. It's got great open spaces, it's safe. My son's already at a really good school there. Sandton gives me great variety, from an awesome nightlife to beautiful places for lunch to spas where I can really relax and recharge. Things happen in Sandton, and that's my neighborhood.
Welcome back to episode 72 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama Khumalo. Well, tech issues are having the better of us this evening, but we're not going to let it get us down. We are having, technical difficulties with having our guest on this evening. Ukosi Makulota, who I did say is the owner of Sisana Heights. And I think one of the big things is certainly wanting to have a conversation with her around her property journey. I think one of the things that we certainly do around here on the Private Property Podcast is bring different people who are slightly further ahead than some of us on their property journeys, get a sense of what some of the lessons that they've learned along the journey and some of the tips that they certainly want to share with us. Because one of the big things that we're certainly learning right here on the Private Property Podcast is there are certain mistakes we don't need to make. Other people have made them. All we need to do is simply learn from those mistakes. And that's, of course, the big question for them this evening, seeing as we can't have our guest on, is what lessons have you learned along your property journey? What were some of the mistakes that you made along the way that could have even cost you money, for example, that you've learned from, that you want to share with us as a community so that we don't have to make that mistake? We certainly want to hear from you. So do share those right below, whether you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. We want to hear what those lessons are so that we can help each other out. So that we can certainly, continue this conversation on our social media platforms where we learn from each other and make sure that those of us, of course, who want to take advantage of this historic low interest rate cut do not make some of those mistakes. We saw earlier on that Reserve Bank Governor Lesetja Kganyago did announce that the interest rates have gone down by 25 basis points, bringing it to 3.5%. I know a lot of us, certainly nobody who is my age has lived in South Africa with such low interest rates. The last time rates were this low was in July 1966. So it is historically low interest rates. A lot of people are going to want to try and take advantage of it. And we've had different guests who've given us different insights on how to look at low interest rates and making the right decision for whether this is the right time for you to buy or not to buy. And in the event where you've missed those episodes, do go back on our social media platforms, whether you go back right here on Facebook or perhaps also right here on our YouTube channel, where we did have that panel discussion. And we'll even post the link right here below, where we had a panel of experts looking at whether right now is the time to invest or not invest. When you look at the low interest rates, and certainly back then we were predicting that there was going to be another interest rate cut, as we're seeing right now. I'm already seeing people saying that the Reserve Bank certainly has room to cut interest rates just slightly further. And I'm sure a lot of property enthusiasts are certainly looking forward to that interest rate cut in the coming weeks. And if it does happen, then I'm sure it's going to, it's going to be one of those exciting times for people who have property or who want to be buying more property. But it's also a really good time, of course, for people who are in debt and are looking to, pay off as much of their debt as possible. And that is certainly something that I'm sure a lot of people are looking to prioritize. Well, folks, we're going to be there. Yeah, so I think, folks, I'll certainly be, going through some of the lessons that you've learned along the way on your property journey that you'd like to share with us as a community, so that we're able to learn from each other. I think I certainly share some of the mistakes that I've made on my property journey, from not knowing that when you buy a bonded property, there are two attorneys that handle a transaction as opposed to one. So not budgeting for paying two attorneys. And that's, of course, now a mistake none of us are going to make, because we know that you've got the transferring attorneys and your bond registration attorneys. So as you save up for your deposit, you also want to make sure that you're saving up for, those two sets of attorneys. And we're having here comments certainly from people at home who are sharing some of their lessons that they've learned along the way. We're hearing from Umata Shingano, who says, selling my first house to get into property investment was a mistake that she had. And I'm sure if you actually listen back to the conversation that we had with Unondumiso Kapai from ABSA, we're looking at how you can make money from your home loan facility. So there's certainly different ways you can make money from your home loan facility, or access money from your home loans facility, where you don't have to go to the extent, for example, of selling that property. So you can either refinance or perhaps use some of the funds that are in the flexi save. So there really are different ways that you can go about maximizing the already the one property that you currently have, depending on how much liquidity you have in it, and making sure that you don't, make some of those mistakes. And I'm sure that, Martha, you're probably now thinking, had I not bought that property, maybe I could have been able to do X, Y, Z with this. We've got another one here from Amber Haywood, who says that buy a property in the early phases of a big development whereby the escalation increases. And that's a really important one. Thank you so much for sharing there, Amber. I think if you actually go back to the conversation that we had, where we looked at what the questions you need to ask when you're buying into a development. That was a conversation we had with Grant Smear, where we really did look at, we'll say, the pros and cons really of buying into a new development. And one of the tips that he did say was, the earlier you buy into a big development, certainly the better for you as the buyer, because you're buying at a lower price than when you're finding it, let's say, stage 5, where they're selling the last phase of the development, and by then the prices have substantially escalated. So you really want to get in as early as possible in these new developments. So do listen back to that conversation with Grant Smear. You can go back on our YouTube channel and access that episode. Another one we've got here from, of course, one of our regular viewers is Ubon Sabagwena, who says, if all fails, can Zama talk to us about her property journey? She has some nuggets, I always say to the team, I sometimes shy away from talking about my own property journey. I like sharing the little bit where I made some of my own mistakes. And I think certainly mistakes that people can learn from without having to make. I think sometimes we make mistakes that cost us money, and you only realize in retrospect that, oh, actually, had I known X, Y, Z, I would have done better. But Bongs, we'll see how we can put that in. We'll see how I can start sharing a little bit about my own property journey as the weeks go on. Maybe we'll do a nice little teaser, certainly for the community, with the team, where I can talk a little bit about my property journey. And I think one of the big things is certainly what that I've learned from my property journey. So I can give you this one is, you're going to get scared, and I know a lot of our guests have certainly shared this one. You're going to get scared. Sometimes it might be slightly overwhelming, but you have to get to a point where you make a decision, right? I think the one thing about property is, if all else fails, you're able to sell your property, or there are different things you can do with it. I think for me, it's been a very interesting journey that started in many different ways. And I'm sure, Bongs, I'll be able to share in due course. But for now, we're certainly not going to share just yet. But of course, we do want to hear what some of your property lessons have been along the way, and some of the lessons that you've learned that have maybe cost you money, or perhaps that have saved you money. So if you even have tips for us on how we can walk this journey just slightly better and make sure that we watch out for certain things, do continue commenting below. We certainly want to hear from you, and we want to, of course, learn from each other as a community. Folks, we're going to leave it there for this evening. Unfortunately, we couldn't have Ukosi, but it was actually a great way for us to start talking about how we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to be able to learn from those mistakes. We're seeing interest rates being low. A lot of people are going to want to jump into property. Increasingly, more and more people want to access property, which is, of course, a good thing. So understanding what it is you're going into and being clear about what the process is becomes so important. So do go back to some of the great episodes that we've shared right here on the Private Property Podcast, where we speak to different guests around, getting into the property space. What you need to be doing becomes so important. Also, remember to go to www.privateproperty.co.za under the advice section, where you'll be able to, you're literally able to put in, let's say, first home buyer, and you can get various results, or interest rates, or how to negotiate, for better rates, or perhaps OTP. You're able to get all those tips and tricks that will help you on your property journey, which of course becomes such an important thing. And as usual, once you have signed on that OTP, or that property has been registered, do share with us. I think we like hearing good news. We are a community that is really enjoys sharing good news together. Even whenever we announce winners to various competitions, we're always getting congratulatory messages to the respective winners. So do share with us even when you make those wins. We're going to leave it there this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning into the Private Property Podcast. We promise to be back tomorrow with a really great speaker. And Bonds, I promise one of these good days I'll be able to share on my very own property journey. Until tomorrow evening, hoping you're staying home and staying safe. Thank you.
As a family, we've chosen to live in Fourways because of the lifestyle and convenience, and this is our neighborhood.
Hi, I'm Nicoline Terblanche and I'm part of the SA Women's Hockey team. And I'm the Technical Director of Tax Hockey. And I'm also the Assistant Coach for the first team ladies. I moved to Ferry Glen about 5 years ago. Ferry Glen is a really safe place and the people are really kind. Some of my friends live very close by in suburbs like Equestria and Olympus. In the morning I will wake up, make myself a cup of coffee, go for a jog in the Ferry Glen Nature Reserve, or even just in the neighborhood. It's safe, quiet, and the environment is really nice. I love Ferry Glen because I'm near the city, but I'm not in the city. I like to go to Pretoria Country Club to clear my mind, on my own, to relax and just to enjoy a round of golf. In Pretoria East we really have nice places to visit like Menlyn Mall and Brooklyn Mall that is really close by. There are also a lot of top schools in the area like Pretoria Boys and Hoërskool Menlo Park. One of the most beautiful places to see the whole of Pretoria is the Fort Kapperkop viewpoint. And that's my neighborhood.